back to the double leg. I'm one half of the show, HI Picks. The other half of the show, the parlay, joining me in to break down some UFC Singapore. Let's get it. Coming off hot from UFC 292, the pay-per-view, we're going into UFC Singapore, headlined by Max Holloway and the Korean Zombie. The fight that probably should have happened a while ago. We're finally getting it. Not sure if it's going to be very competitive. The betting odds would not say that it will be, but either way, Korean Zombie, always live as an underdog. He's a big one here. Co-main event, Anthony Smith, Ryan Spann. What do you think of the card overall? We got 13 fights to break down today.
Yeah, overall, I think it's a decent card with some good spots and some good fights and matchmaking. I mean, you're going to get Max Holloway. The only downfall is, you're getting him at a minus, 800 to 10 to 1 favorite. So that kind of sucks. I wish it was going to be a little bit more competitive because Max Holloway is a hell of a lot of fun to watch in competitive fights. As you and I were at that Kansas City card against Arnold Allen, was a lot of fun. But I mean, you're going to get some veterans on this card. Anthony Smith, Ryan Spann. We're going to get to see Giga Chikadze again, who's always exciting to watch, against Alex Caceres, who's kind of the same way. And so up-and-comers, too. This Nakamura guy, I mean, if you didn't watch his last fight, I think it was in February, the dude is an absolute savage and a whole lot of fun to watch. So we're going to get some good prospects on this card, too. And honestly, can't wait.
Yeah, that dude's a nasty, nasty fighter. The knockout he had last February was pretty nasty. You also got the pretty much title eliminated for 125 in the women's flyweight division with Erin Blanchfield, Tyler Santos. We're going to go through and give you our picks and break down each fight individually. But our picks are not our bets. If you want our bets, you can hop on the double leg premium. The link is in the description there. Gets you every single UFC card for less than $1 a day. That is a monthly membership there, or you can wait till Friday and get the instant download when it is available. But let's go and start breaking down these fights, starting with the main event. Max Holloway coming in at minus 790 against the Korean Zombie, Chan Sung Jung, sitting at plus 515, over under 2.5 rounds, minus 245 for the over, plus 205 for the under. Max Holloway coming in 3-2 in his last 5. Same with the Korean Zombie, 36 years of age for him, though. Crazy to believe that Max Holloway is only 31 years old. He's been in the game for a very long time. A veteran at that. 5'11" for him. 72-inch reach for Korean Zombie. So he's going to have some pretty long arms for that frame. And he's coming in here off the loss his last time out to the one and only Alexander Volkanovski, who is the only guy that Max Holloway has lost to in a very long time. And that was not a great showing for him. That was over a year. And that was what, April of 2022. So that's a year and 4 months. And he got the brakes beat off him. Was the champion, but it was a tough one to watch because you could tell just wasn't really what he once was. He's also going up against a very good competitor in Alexander Volkanovski. He took a beating in that one, and he was the Korean Zombie, the vintage Korean Zombie, where he's just getting hit, but he's still staying in there. But before that, I mean, we all know his fighting style. Wants to keep it on the feet. He does have some solid grappling, but for Max Holloway, always wants to keep it on the feet as well. He's going to throw a lot at you as far as the volume goes. His last time I was against Arnold Allen, we were there in attendance at UFC Kansas City, and it was just the vintage Max Holloway performance. These are two veteran guys going at it. Who do you think is going to come out with the victory? Are you taking Korean Zombie? You're even looking at it.
I think there's phenomenal value on. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, this is all Max Holloway here, and not just because Korean Zombie's a bad fighter. Just stylistically, Max is so solid everywhere. I mean, he's got the youth on his side. Korean Zombie used to be a phenomenal fighter, but I think it's just he's at this point in his career where this is probably gonna be his last fight in the UFC. Him and Max have been in the UFC forever, and they've both had long careers who've fought everybody, but somehow these two have not fought each other. And so I think after this one, Max is probably going to win. I'm going to call by decision, but I think, the Korean Zombie hangs it up after. For Max Holloway, though, like you mentioned, he's only lost to Volkanovski That's his only loss in a long time. But even before that, his losses are Dustin Poirier, and then he had 13 wins in a row before that. And then before that, his only losses are Conor McGregor and Dennis Bermudez, right before that 13 fight win streak. So this guy's resume in the UFC is incredible. I mean, some of his wins, you got Cub Swanson, Jeremy Stevens, Anthony Pettis, Jose Aldo 2 times, Brian Ortega, Frankie Edgar, Calvin Cater, Yair Rodriguez, Arnold Allen. I mean, it's insane. It's insane the guys that Max Holloway has beat. And, on the feet, there's not a better striker or guy to watch than Max Holloway, too. So here, man, it's all Holloway, in my opinion. Feel sorry for the Korean Zombie. He's got to go out like this. I don't know if Max finishes him. And I think, it'll be kind of a fun fight to watch if you like technical boxing and slick striking. But overall, I think Max is just going to dominate this one.
Yeah, I thought Korean Zombie was probably going to be done. It was looking like they were going to try and make a card over in South Korea early in the year. That was like the February card. And then Korean Zombie got hurt. So then they're like, kind of got to scrap that. They ultimately landed the fight card that was supposed to be in South Korea to the Apex. And that's when they ran that show that was like super late at night. I think it started at like midnight or something. So they were giving him that opportunity to like fight in his region of the world. That was probably going to be his last fight. And then he was kind of just an unknown. And now they're giving him a card in Singapore. And they're like, well, who do you fight at this point? I mean, if you want to fight Max Holloway, he kind of called him out after his last fight. He was like, that's one that I haven't fought him yet. We probably should have fought each other by now. So Korean Zombie like signs up to do it. I think it's pretty much just like, all right, this will be a fun fight to end my career on, win or lose. So that's kind of where I'm looking at it for the Korean Zombie. That's why you see the line. It's tough to get behind because of everything that you said about Max Holloway. And a lot of people, I don't want to say we're down on him going into the Arnold Allen fight, but I saw a lot of people on Arnold Allen to be like, all right, this is the guy that could beat Max Holloway. And it was just, it was I don't want to say a close fight. He fought him a little bit closer than I expected. I expected Max Holloway to be quicker with the head movement, quicker with the feet. Arnold Allen was still able to push the pace on him a little bit. But either way, it was just, a regular unanimous decision win for Max Holloway. He looked a little bit older, I would say, in that fight, but he's going to look younger than the Korean Zombie in this one. So it's probably just going to be another cruise to a victory. Could find a late finish. I would say it's probably by decision. Holloway's not some big power puncher. Korean Zombie is a tough guy. And if it is his last fight, I would imagine he wants to go out on a shield. You saw the older guys like a Luke Rockhold or a Chris Weidman in their last fight. They tough it out and go to make it to a decision if they go into it knowing it's going to be their last fight, possibly be their last fight, I should say. But yeah, I'm going to go with Max Holloway. It's pretty hard not to at this point. Co-main event, a light heavyweight bout. Ryan Spann coming in at minus 130. Anthony Smith coming in at minus 100. Even money. This is a rematch. And if you remember correctly, Anthony Smith got the win. It wasn't too long ago. The over-under for this one, 1.5 rounds, plus 145 for the over, minus 175 for the under. You see the wealth of experience for Anthony Smith. 3-2 in his last 5. He was on the win streak, but he's lost his last 2 in a row. His last win was against Ryan Spann. That was in 2021, September 18th, 2021, when he got the rear naked choke in the first round. Against Anthony Smith, hasn't won, or against Ryan Spann, hasn't won a fight since then. And for Ryan Spann, a little bit younger. Both guys super big for the weight class, and coming in here 3-2 in his last 5 as well. His last time out, he's a potent finisher. You see the explosiveness with the hands and the submissions he's able to pull anything out whenever it is available to him. Since the Anthony Smith fight, he beat Iwan Kudalava first round guillotine, beat Dominic Reyes first round knockout, and then his last time out, he lost via triangle choke to Nikita Krylov. This is like it's a weird rematch because like one guy won pretty like decisively. I mean, he finished him in the first round, but I think where these guys are at in their careers and where the rankings are at with the division, it's like, all right, if you want to stay active, this is kind of where you got to go. So that's why they make the rematch. But who do you think takes it?
Yeah, I think it all depends on what Anthony Smith looks like coming into this fight, because he, like you said, he has a wealth of experience. He's beat some good fighters. It's not like he's a bad fighter or ever has been, but his last two losses, the one to Johnny Walker, not long ago, I think you said 2 to 3 months ago, he got beat up for 3 rounds. He took a lot of leg kicks. He was damaged up. And then before that, same story with Magomed Ankalaev. The only difference is Ankalaev ended the fight in the second round, so he didn't have to endure that punishment for 3 rounds, only 2 there. And, at his age, I don't like it. I don't like it against a guy like Spann, who is dangerous, even though, his fight IQ might not be the best. He does get hit, and he has been finished quite a few times in his career. But at the same time, he is super dangerous. He's super powerful. He can choke you out. He can knock you out. And overall, man, I just see Anthony Smith on the decline. And the last 2 fights, it seemed like it's been evident of it. If he loses here, I don't think we see Anthony Smith fight again. He has a lot going on outside the octagon. He's got a lot of shows he does. He's on, works for the UFC and the broadcasting, which he does good at. So, I mean, that's obviously his next step in his career. And, when you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out against dangerous guys like Spann, it doesn't always work out all the time. I mean, Spann has a negative strike differential, but I don't think Anthony Smith is going to come out and just put it on him for 3 rounds. Like if Anthony Smith wins this fight, I think he's got to find the chin early, or he's got to get to the back on the ground and find that submission early, because as fights goes on, as Anthony Smith starts taking and accumulating damage, that game just kind of declines during the fight, and you can see it. And it's been visible his last 2. So I'm going to take Ryan Spann here. Betting wise, it's kind of dicey just because this is the type of fight you just don't know. Like I said, there's a lot of factors with the age, Ryan Spann's IQ. But betting wise, I'm definitely going to look at the under, see what it comes out. I'm guessing it's going to be 1.5 rounds due to the fact that both of these guys have some finishes and finish losses on their record. Especially Spann, man. You look at it, sub loss to Krylov, knocked out Dominic Reyes. What they're calling on here, a power jab is what it's listed at. Submits Jan Kudatalaba, and then loses to Anthony Smith, which that's the one interesting thing people are going to look at. But at the end of the day, Anthony Smith in 2020 and 2023, even though it's only a 3-year difference, is almost night and day in my opinion. So I'm going to stick with Ryan Spann.
Yeah, it's pretty rare that you see a guy that won the first fight and then in the rematch he's the underdog. So I mean, I think that speaks to like what has happened since then, and it's just basically 2 poor performances from Anthony Smith. Like, yeah, he got his leg broken against Ankalaev and could have had his leg broken against Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker fought him very smart. He just stayed at range, used his length, and kicked the legs. And Anthony Smith was very vocal about like, this has been a glaring hole in his game his entire career. Is like he can't check leg kicks. It just doesn't deal with leg kicks very well. And it's super weird to see him come back this quick, because the way he acted after that fight was like people were telling him to retire, and you could tell he was like kind of feeling that and being like, maybe I should retire. Like I need to do something. I don't want to retire, but maybe I'm at that point in my career where I should consider it. And then he's coming back like 3 months later. Did he fix the leg kick problem? Like, that's my question. I don't think that just happens to be fixed within 3 months. Like, what's the game plan going into this? I mean, do I really trust Ryan Spann to come out there and have some beautiful game plan to beat him? Absolutely not, because he's just a throw everything at you, try to get you out of there in the first round type of fighter. So that's where it's tough to take him at chalk. I do believe he should be the favorite, but it's just not a guy that you really want to bet as a favorite because he just fights so wild. And Anthony Smith does have the finishing ability as well. And you look at how he beat him the first time, got him to the ground and rear naked choked him. So he has great BJJ. If he does get it to the ground, I think he has the ability to get another win. But I'm going to go with Ryan Spann because it's tough to get behind an Anthony Smith at this point in his career. Featherweight bout, the return of Giga Chikadze coming in at minus 235 against Alex Caceres, who sits at plus 195. Over under 2.5 rounds, minus 215 for the over. plus 175 for the under. Both men 4-1 in their last 5. And Giga Chikadze, we're finally getting him back. I was wondering when he was going to come back. The last time we saw him was against Calvin Kattar at the beginning of 2022. So it's been over a year and a half for him since he's been in the octagon. That was at the Apex. Now it's going to be at the big cage in Singapore, which probably favors him a little bit more because he likes to use that length, use that kickboxing, but it was a beating he took last time out. Now, Calvin Kattar is a very different fighter than Alex Caceres is, but with the time off, like that's going to be a tough way to come back because that amount of time off after getting, the shit beat out of you was like, that's the tough thing to come back to in any realm. But for Alex Caceres, his last time out was Daniel Pineda, got to win by decision. And very impressed that he wasn't able to finish him because Daniel Pineda was hurt a lot of the fight. And I know that was one of your bad beats of the year, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
For Alex Caceres, but he's coming in here, Giga Chikadze as an underdog. You think he could pull it off?
I do think he has a chance. I think the line's a little wide here, considering the facts that Chikadze coming off of a loss to Kattar and a longer layoff against Caceres, who sneakily has racked up a ton of fights in the UFC. Look at his record. I mean, the guy's been fighting in the UFC since 2011 was his first UFC fight. So 12 years. He's got tons of experience, and his game has kind of evolved. With some of these up and coming guys. He can kind of match them everywhere it goes. I mean, Chikadze's experienced too in fighting, and he's looked really good, early in his career, in his UFC career, despite his last loss. His kickboxing is insanely good. He's so fun to watch on the feet, especially in the first few rounds. The kicks are fast and powerful. He'll just chew your legs up. But against Kattar, I mean, he really, really slowed down when he started getting hit. And as that fight went on, and Kattar just, took over. We all know Kattar's an extremely good boxer. Caceres probably not on that level of striking, but Caceres is good everywhere. He's got good volume on the feet. He has decent kicks himself, kind of that karate style. We saw him catch Julian Erosa with that high kick, put him out, was well timed. But he will get hit. So that's kind of the factor here. How long can he keep it on the feet and not get caught with something, really, really powerful? His grappling's gotten good over the years. His submissions have been on point. He can take your back well. And, once he's on your back, he does have some rear naked choke finishes and submissions. And I think he's going to have to test Giga's ground game here because not many people have. I think the only person really to go out there and try to wrestle Chikadze, I was looking earlier, was really Jamal Emmers. And that was a split decision win for Chikadze. So it's not like that was it's not like he dominated that fight. He kind of struggled, got taken down, I think, 2 times in that one. So I think if Caceres can try that, maybe even just try to wear him down and take some of the danger out of the shots early, he'll give himself a better chance. But overall, if it stays standing and it stays at range, it's just hard to bet against Chikadze, especially against Caceres, who is good, but he's not, Calvin Kattar level boxing. But he has experience and he's seen every single style there is to see. So it could get interesting. I think the line is wide. Not sure if I'm willing to take him. Caceres is a dog yet, but I think it could be, a decent fight. I don't think it's going to be super lopsided or anything. For the pick, though, I'll go with Caceres. I'll take a chance on him. I think Chikadze, obviously a great kickboxer, like I alluded to, but Caceres is just that sneaky good fighter. I think he's got a chance.
I'm with you. I think the line is pretty wide because Caceres has been so active and he's been racking up wins. The wins aren't like something crazy. Like the only guy he's lost to in the past 4 years is Sadiq Youssef. And even in that fight, like he didn't get outclassed by any means. Sadiq Youssef is like the much better striker, I would say. But that's like his ranked opponent that he's faced. He lost. So he's coming in here against Giga Chikadze, who's been in the rankings. And the time off, I don't want to say it's like good for him because he is 34 years old. And it's kind of got to go now. But you take that type of beating, maybe it's better that you take the longer time off and come back when you're ready. He was scheduled to fight Sadiq Youssef back in September of last year and then waited almost a whole year to get scheduled again. So I mean, I don't like the price for Giga, but I think at his best, he beats Alex Caceres,
Yeah.
7 to 8 times out of 10. So I'm going to take him for the pick. I don't, it's tough to really bet guys that come off long layoffs like that because you don't know what you're going to get. But if I'm going to bet Giga at his best, I think he wins for sure. So I'm going to take him for the pick.
Here's the last thing that I do kind of like about Caceres is his, he lands 4.1 significant strikes per minute, and he only gets hit with 2.87 over a long, like a big sample size. I mean, he's been in the UFC for a long time. A lot of fights to take this data from. 2.87 with a 63% striking defense is pretty damn high for being in the UFC that long. And a takedown accuracy 68%, which is higher than a lot of people. So something to lean on and look to. But like you said, if Chikadze is at his best and this fight does play out on the feet, he should win. But there's always that chance Caceres finds the back, gets a takedown, does his thing. So could be close.
Yeah. One thing I forgot to say was 3-round fight definitely favors Giga because
the
explosive athlete. You look at the 5-round fight against Calvin Kattar. When did it really get away from him? Was the round 4, round 5.
Mm-hmm.
So 3-round fight definitely favors him if he comes out hot. I mean, Caceres is going to be tough to put away. Like he hasn't been finished all that often by KO. He's only been knocked out once. He's been submitted a number of times, but I don't really see that coming from Giga. So comes out hot, take the first round, and then coast from there and get a round or two after that, or get an early finish. I'll take him. Bantamweight bout here. Rinya Nakamura coming out -800 against Fernie Garcia, who sits at +500. Over under 2.5 rounds, +230 for the over, -290 for the under. The undefeated Rinya Nakamura. We touched on him at the beginning of the show. This man is looks like he could be a problem, but we've been fooled by the Japanese prospects before. He comes in here undefeated 7-0. Fernie Garcia 10-3. Hasn't had the best UFC run. He has lost both of his fights in the UFC. One to Brady Heastan, one to Journey Newson. He's coming in here, very big underdog, and probably for good reason. Rinya Nakamura, is he a fraud? I wouldn't say so at this point. Everything that I've seen, I mean, even on his fight on the road to the UFC, which was like the championship fight for him, just 33 seconds in, destroys Toshiyama Kazama, who's also on this card. So, I mean, another UFC fighter just destroyed him in 30 seconds. It's what he does. I mean, he's got the wrestling pedigree, and then the hands is like, they're nasty. He hits you, and you really feel it. So it's going to be a tough hill to climb for Fernie Garcia coming in here. Do you think he can do it?
No, I don't. I think -800 is crazy on any fighter just because it's the fight game. We see crazy shit happen. But at the same time, like Nakamura, you mentioned something, about, is he a fraud? Do we know enough about him yet? But before the UFC, like this guy was Olympic level wrestling, and had a chance to go make a name for himself just by wrestling. So he's got that to fall back on, and he will use it. He averages a good amount of takedowns per fight. He just overwhelms guys. He's super powerful. He can win the fight like that, get you to the ground. He will find submissions. He's powerful with the strikes on top. But on the feet, he hits hard too, and he swings for the fences. And nobody's really been able to test the chin or anything like that. And I don't think Fernie Garcia is going to be the guy to do it, because if you watch him fight, he's a good boxer, but he's not real powerful. He's not putting dudes away, anything like that. And so far in the UFC, he did get a KO on the Contender Series against Josh Williams in the first round. But after that, he loses a decision to Journey Newson when he was taken down multiple times, loses to Brady Heastan by unanimous decision when he was taken down 3 times. So if those guys are taking him down, I feel like Nakamura could come straight across the octagon and pick him up, slam him, and do his thing if he really wanted to. And I see that, maybe being the game plan here, because if he watched Fernie Garcia's last few fights, I mean, he's going to see the openings. He's going to go for it. And that's going to be the pick. I think he wins this thing probably in the first round and walks out of there with another win under his belt pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean, it's always great when you have like a big favorite like this that can do it in both realms. Like he's not just takedown or bust. Like he has some good hands, and then the wrestling is like pretty damn good. He's been training at American Top Team, so he's making the sacrifices and taking this seriously. Like, this is his career. So coming in here against Fernie Garcia, who's never been finished. I don't want to say he's going to be a tough out, but he's never been finished. So there's that. Rinya Nakamura, most likely, like you said, just goes out there and comes across the cage, picks him up, dumps him, looks for some submissions, maybe some ground and pound, and just overpowers him. Really haven't been that impressed from Fernie Garcia. A couple split decisions on the regional scene, which is like, if you're getting split decisions on the regional scene against guys that aren't in the UFC, like, I don't know, it's just not a good look, because you should probably be winning these fights pretty convincingly to get in the UFC. Even the Contender Series fight, he got the first round knockout. It's Josh Weems. Josh Weems is not the best fighter. I mean, he made it to the UFC, but he's a guy that's like, he's a grappler. Like, he's literally has no knockouts. He's been knocked out a couple times. So I don't really put too much stock into that. Does he go out there and chin Rinya Nakamura? I would be absolutely shocked, because he doesn't have that many knockouts on his record. So it's some pretty heavy chalk. We're not saying anything crazy. So I'm going to take Rinya, of course, probably round 1, like you said. But yeah, got to go with him. I mean, it's pretty much a hope if you're taking Fernie.
Yeah.
Flyweight bout here. Erin Blanchfield coming in at -140 against Taila Santos, who sits at +110. Over under 2.5 rounds, -290 for the over, +230 for the under. 24 years of age for Erin Blanchfield. 11-1 record for her, 5-0 in her last 5. She's been on quite the tear. Taila Santos hasn't fought since she fought the champion, Valentina Shevchenko. That was over a year ago. She was scheduled to fight Erin Blanchfield earlier in February. She had to pull out due to visa issues. And Erin Blanchfield then took on Jessica Andrade and got the second round submission, I should say. So she's coming in here. This is the matchup that they wanted originally. And Blanchfield's coming in as the slight favorite after getting the win. I don't want to say long, I mean, a little over a year layoff for Taila Santos, but she's coming in here against Erin Blanchfield. It's a good matchup. I think it's a really good matchup because both ladies have really good ground games. And I don't know how much the fight will play out on the feet, but a lot of times when you get two girls with good ground games, it turns into some kind of boxing or kickboxing match. If that's the case, then it gets even closer. Like, Blanchfield looked good against Jessica Andrade. Taila Santos has some solid striking, decent striking. It's tough to judge on like the championship level because of that headbutt she had against Valentina that kind of compromised her pretty heavily to really be able to judge how good it is at that level. Because even before that title fight, like, the girl she was fighting wasn't on this level. Like, she beat Joanne Wood and then Roxanne Modafferi and Jillian Robertson. Like, the wins to get her to the title shot, they just doesn't really compare to like what Erin Blanchfield's been going up against, I would say.
Right.
So it's tough to judge that, but what do you got in this one?
Yeah, it's like hard to pick this fight because you look at both fighters and there's a lot to like on both sides. I mean, for Taila Santos, the fight against Valentina, a lot of people thought she won. I mean, she was outstruck by 20 strikes or so. Each had 3 takedowns. Taila Santos had 3 submission attempts compared to Valentina's 1. To be able to go 5 rounds to a decision and lose by split to Valentina is super impressive. Like, super, super impressive. But she's big for the division, man. I mean, you could tell she's jacked to all in. She's strong. Her striking has gotten, a lot better over the years. Her wrestling's obviously there. She just doesn't throw a ton of volume on the feet. I think that's where Erin Blanchfield would struggle against girls. Higher level girls is like a really good striker who has good takedown defense and wrestling as well. So I wish Taila had more volume, I guess, because you even look against like Jillian Robertson. She landed 1 takedown and had 27 total strikes to Jillian's 9 strikes in a 3-round decision. Against Joanne Wood, she only landed 30 significant strikes in that fight. So she's not exactly racking it up against some girls. And, some of her strikes come on the ground when she's on top and have girls in mount or, like with Molly McCann had her and just beat the brakes off her when she was on the ground. So yeah, that makes it tough to pick because Blanchfield's not really known for being a striker, but it's obviously gotten better because in her last fight against Andrade, she was, cracking Andrade on the feet when I think people thought that that's where Jessica was going to have the advantage in that fight. So you see a lot of improvements in that. And on the ground, Blanchfield is just an absolute monster. I mean, submits Andrade, submits Molly McCann, submits JJ Aldrich 3 in a row. And before that, went to decision with a Miranda Maverick and Sarah Alpar. But the Alpar fight, she had 3 takedowns and landed 120 strikes compared to Alpar's 41. So she just dominates girls. Like, I love the domination factor. And the last thing on Santos, outside of the submission win over Joanne Wood, she's never finished anybody in the UFC. She's got 6, 7 fights in the UFC, and she has 1 finish. So even though she does dominate girls and she looks really good, she's not going out there for the kill in a lot of these fights. So you look at Erin Blanchfield, who is, when she gets you on the ground, she's going to work until she finds that finish. It makes me want to lean Blanchfield here. Blanchfield is 24 years old. Tyler Santos, just over 30. Maybe a little bit more experience and maturity there. But if Erin Blanchfield keeps progressing like she has been between fights, I think she's going to be a lot to handle for Santos here. And it's so hard to pick. I'm going to go Blanchfield just because I like the upside. I think she's, like I said, man, she's improving so much every time she goes out there. So I expect her to do the same here, and should be a close fight, but I think she can get the win.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough to pick against Erin Blanchfield in the spot just based off of the activity that she's had and how dominant she's looked in certain spots. Like, if you're, I don't want to say, I mean, you're subbing Jessica Andrade, doesn't age the best since she did it.
Yeah.
Like, she was coming off a great performance before that. And then since she got submitted by Erin Blanchfield, she just hasn't looked as good. But, I mean, made slight work of Molly McCann, still doesn't age the best there. But made some, I don't want to say slight work against JJ Aldrich, but got her out there in the second round.
Yeah.
And then the win against Miranda Maverick looks pretty decent. So she's looked good. She's done everything she needed to do to get to this point. For Tyler Santos, what she did against Valentina kind of like opened the door to be like, all right, this girl is beatable, because she was able to take her down, able to threaten her with submissions in rounds 1 through 3. And one of the judges gave her all 3 of the first rounds. So there's that. I mean, she beat her on a judge's scorecard. There's that. And then she goes out there and she's got the headbutt on the eye, and it doesn't look good after that. But then, you take that into consideration. That is the cream of the crop in Valentina Shevchenko. What is she going to be able to do to Erin Blanchfield? We will see. But I think for the pick, I have to go with Erin Blanchfield. It's a very close matchup, though. It really comes down to how strong is Tyler Santos on the ground, because Erin Blanchfield looks like she can get from position to position very easily on these girls. Will she be able to do that against Tyler Santos? We will see. But for the pick, I'm going to go with Erin Blanchfield, because I do think if it's on the feet, she'll be able to look a little bit better with the volume as well. Just pick up the overall damage as the fight progresses. So I'll take her. Junior Tafa coming in here in a heavyweight bout against Parker Porter. Porter sits at plus 130. Tafa sits at minus 160. Over under 1.5 rounds. Minus 120 for the over. Minus 110 for the under. Junior Tafa coming in 4-1 in his last 5. Parker Porter 3-2 in his last 5. 38 years of age for him. 26 years of age for Junior Tafa. If you remember his UFC debut, it was one of the grossest fights I think I've ever watched in the UFC. It was Muhammad Usman lay on him for 12 minutes out of 15 and literally land 7 significant strikes the entire fight. I mean, you got to put a lot of that on Junior Tafa as well, because he couldn't get up. He literally got taken down twice, could not get up. And he found himself on his back for most of the fight, and he couldn't get up. So that sucks that he couldn't do that. He kind of gassed out after that first round. At the end of the first round, he kind of let off this like flurry and nearly got Usman out of there. And then after that, it was like he just gassed out. He once he got taken down, couldn't get up. So that's tough to look at. But then you look at Parker Porter, and Parker Porter literally just beats the bottom of the barrel for the heavyweight division. Wins over Braxton Smith, Alan Badeau, Chase Sherman, Josh Parisian. That is the bottom of the barrel, like the bottom of the barrel. And I don't think Junior Tafa is the bottom of the barrel because he has very good kickboxing skills. He is very big. He's still young. He's young in his MMA career. I don't think Parker Porter's going to be able to hold him down for 12 minutes. If he does, I'll live with it. But I think on the feet, Junior Tafa is just going to be much more active, a lot more power, a lot more skill on the feet. I mean, one of the Tafas already knocked out Parker Porter. I'm going to go with Junior Tafa in this one to do the same thing to him. And younger fighter, always love that. So I think I got to take him. Are you giving Parker Porter a chance?
No, I don't think I can here. Parker Porter is a well-rounded fighter. He doesn't do anything great, though. I mean, he doesn't do anything bad. He's going to be shorter than Tafa here, reach disadvantage. He's more athletic than he appears. Like he's like a thick dude. I mean, he's 6 foot, but he's got such a big belly. He looks, unathletic and like he couldn't do some of the things he does. But he is decently athletic and has really, really good volume for being a big guy like that. He has been finished a ton though, and he's got a chance for both Tafa brothers to finish Parker Porter in 1 year, in the same exact year. And for Justin Tafa, like regardless of getting taken down by Muhammad Usman, who is a legitimate wrestler with a lot more strength than Parker Porter and a lot more explosiveness, I think that Tafa keeps this one on the feet against Porter. And even Parker Porter does throw 6.66 significant strikes per minute, which is a very, very high rate for heavyweights. But the problem with doing that here against Tafa is you're going to get countered. Like you're going to get countered by this dude who's a phenomenal kickboxer, like really, really, really good kickboxer who's powerful, super athletic. Usman did have 12 minutes of control in his UFC debut, but those 3 minutes that were on the feet, Usman was in great danger at all times. And every time he got touched, Usman was stumbled a little bit and on shaky legs. And it just shows the power and accuracy of Tafa. Very dangerous. And I think he should, like I said, keep this on the feet. And if he does, at some point, Parker Porter is going to feel one of those combinations, one of those kicks to the midsection right in the stomach, and just, either get a little bit more worn out until that big finish comes, or Tafa is going to get an early finish, in my opinion. So I think he does beat Parker Porter. I like him a lot this week.
Yeah. If you're looking at that Usman fight, like he was on the ground, like Usman was on top of him, or at least had the control time for more than 3 minutes and 25 seconds in every round. Yeah. And yet people were still looking at that like Junior Tafa might have won that like every round because he just did way more damage than Muhammad Usman did. So yeah, that was just a disgusting fight. I don't think Parker Porter is going to be able to do that.
Right.
So I like Junior Tafa. Another heavyweight bout here, Waldo Cortes Acosta coming in at minus 238 against Lucas Brzeski, who sits at plus 198, over under 2.5 rounds, minus 125 for the over, minus 105 for the under. 9-1 for Waldo Cortes Acosta. Picked up his first loss of his career his last time out against the Derek Lewis knee eater, Marcos Rogerio de Lima. 31 years of age for both men, 6'4" for both men, and a 78-inch reach with 0.3 advantage for Lucas Brzeski. If you're looking at Brzeski, his last performance out was against Carl Williams. He got absolutely ragdolled, like thrown across the cage like he was a stuffed animal and gassed out completely. Look at the performance before that. Some would say a robbery against Martin Budai. He outstruck him, nearly doubled him up. But either way, Budai landed the more significant shots. That is ultimately why they gave him the decision. Coming in here against Waldo Cortes Acosta, these guys are kind of both like volume punchers. Like for heavyweights, they're just going to throw good jabs. They're going to stay in your face and be busy. So I'm interested to see how this works out. But for Cortes Acosta, the big weakness for him that we've seen is like the leg kicks. Against Rogerio de Lima, he was just whipping those things in there, and it didn't look great. He has good cardio, I will say that. Like he was able to come back in the third round against Rogerio de Lima and get a pick up the win in that round. and nearly tripled him up on the significant strike count. But coming against Lucas Brzeski, I think he probably hits the more significant shots as well. Heavyweights that don't hit that hard, like it's always tough to get behind him at chalk. But in this one, I think he probably can keep up with the volume, land the more significant shots, and has the better cardio. So I'm going to go with him. But do you think there's any value on the dog?
Yeah, it's hard to tell, just because this is like a different style, I guess, for Lucas Brzeski. I mean, he's not fighting that wrestler like he was against Carl Williams, where he just got taken down and worn out. But even the fight against Bedoya, I mean, he did kind of fade late going into that fight, going into that third round. Like he was getting really, really tired. And the one big ups I have for Cortes Acosta is that he does have really good volume, and he's shown pretty damn good cardio in his fights. I know they're against, Chase Sherman and Jared Vanderaa, his first 2 wins in the UFC. But in those fights, I mean, he landed 147 strikes against Chase Sherman and, 73 against Jared Vanderaa, won both those fights on the scorecards pretty easily. So I think that volume, if he doesn't find a finish, will take over as the fight goes on, and you could see him get this thing on the scorecards. That's how he's won his first 2 and lost his first fight in the UFC. But if Lucas can get the leg kicks going, that's going to be his path. Like that's going to be his path here, is to slow him down with those leg kicks, because Cortes Acosta just hasn't really learned how to check him. He kind of takes it and he'll yell at you, like, act like he didn't feel it. But yeah. I mean, Lucas Brzeski does have some pop in his shots, whether it's the kick or the shots upstairs with the fists. So that makes it a little bit interesting. However, I do like Cortes Acosta's boxing, even defensively. Like you can tell he's got boxing experience, which he does, like professional boxing experience for the UFC. And he's really slick. He's fast. He slips and counters pretty well. And that volume, man, if Brzeski can't slow him down, I think the volume just takes over at some point. He's really good with it, and he works everything. He works the body, the legs, and he'll come up top of the shots as well. And he's, so far he eats the leg kicks well, and he's durable. And I think that's, if he does that in this fight too, he's going to walk away with another decision victory. So I'm going to take him for the pick.
Yeah, he's been pretty active too. I mean,
yeah,
this is his 4th fight within the past year. So there's that for him. I like him for the pick. Don't really like the chalk on him, but he should be the favorite in this spot. So I'll take
right.
it. Bantamweight bout here, Toshiomi Kazama coming in at +115 against Garrett Armfield, who sits at -145, over under 1.5 rounds, -180 for the over, +150 for the under. Toshiomi Kazama, touched on him earlier. He fought Rinya Nakamura in the road to the UFC championship, got put out in 33 seconds. So they're giving him a shot here in Singapore. Garrett Armfield hasn't fought in a while. His last time out was against David Onama, and he fought in July of 2022. So he's been out for over a year. Couple cancellations against Christian Rodriguez and Jose Johnson. Comes in here, making the trip over to Singapore. So it's quite the road trip, or air trip, you should say, for him. Both men 26 years of age. Coming in as a favorite for Garrett Armfield. Do you think he can get it done, or is there any value on the dog in Kazama?
I think Armfield can get it done. I like his pure boxing. Like it's pretty good on the feet. He's pretty slick with it. He mixes in some good low kicks as well. He can wrestle a bit. When he does wrestle and he's fighting these other wrestlers, he tends to slow down a little bit. It's kind of hard to tell what that cardio is going to be like. And against a guy like Kazama who has decent wrestling. I think I want to say he has a judo background, and he's good on the ground. Like especially if he's on top, he's got the good submissions, and they're pretty sneaky as well. So if he can get Armfield down early in the first round and a half, and just kind of wear him down a little bit and test that cardio, I think he's got a shot to beat Armfield. But on the feet, Kazama's striking is not that high level, especially at a distance. Like a lot of his strikes he lands are going to be off the clinch, in close, kind of with that pressure. But if it stands at distance, I think Armfield's boxing is going to be a lot better here. And I do think, Kazama needs to get to the ground early. Like I said earlier, I think if he wants a chance to beat Armfield, he's going to have to do that. If not, I think Armfield is just going to look better as the fight goes on. I don't necessarily think Armfield's going to go starch him or anything. But, from a technical striking standpoint where Armfield can mix in a little bit of wrestling here and there, I think the well-roundedness is making me lean towards him here and getting a win over Kazama.
Yeah, I think I don't want to say it's striker versus grappler, but I do see like Kazama's probably going to want to take this to the ground because that's where he's getting most of his wins. He's got 5 submissions on his record. If you look at how Garrett Armfield is losing, it's when he's on the ground. He's been submitted twice, and then a decision loss to Ronnie Lawrence, who we know is a wrestler and will look to take you down. So that's probably the game plan for Toshiyama Kazama. The longer this fight stays on the feet, I would expect Armfield to expose those holes because Rinya Nakamura was able to expose it in 33 seconds. If you look at how Toshiyama Kazama got to that point, the road to the UFC is basically like you got to win 2 fights to get to the championship for the road to the UFC. He won the first round by decision. He was a slight underdog there. And then the second fight that he was the semifinal, I guess, the guy missed weight. So then he just basically automatically got into the championship. That was against Rinya Nakamura. So he's coming in here on the loss. I mean, he's 1-2 in his last 3. And he loses by knockout. He's lost both of his losses since then by knockout. So Garrett Armfield probably wants to keep this one on the feet and use those hands to get it done. And I'm going to take him for the pick because I think he's going to be able to survive the wrestling of Kazama. It always scares me when you get these guys from the U.S. making that trip over to Singapore or like just a really long road trip.
Yeah.
And then you got to deal with the whole time difference and the jet lag. And when we're going to be watching it, it's going to be 4 or 5 a.m. like our time. So it's just a big time difference change. So that's always scares me. But for the pick, I'm going to go with Garrett Armfield. Middleweight bout here, Michal Oleksiejczuk coming in at -120 against Chikadze and Njokuani, who sits at -110. Both men 3-2 in their last 5. Over under 2.5 rounds, +205 for the over, -245 for the under. 34 years of age for Chikadze, 6'3" for him. He's going to have the height and reach advantage against Oleksiejczuk, who's only 28 years old, and we know him for the big left hand. Both men, their last time out, didn't have the best matchups. Like Oleksiejczuk fought Caio Borralho, who's a known grappler, and that's really where Oleksiejczuk has struggled throughout his career. He's been submitted 4 times. That's a good amount of his losses there. Chikadze's last time out was against Albert Duraev, and he lost a split decision there. It was like Chikadze didn't want to throw anything. He was just way too scared about getting taken down by Duraev, and it was just bad performance for him. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. The one before that was the Gregory Rodriguez loss. This should be a fun matchup because both men are probably going to look to strike. Chikadze got the length advantage, but Oleksiejczuk, I would probably say, has the power advantage. Who do you think comes out with the win in this one?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I love Chikadze's height and reach and his length, and he uses it well, especially early in fights, and he's got a lot of power early. We've seen it. We've seen the finishes. Not the best volume, though, after the first round and a half or so. You can tell he slows down. The gas tank can be suspect. And then, when he's not the aggressor, especially later in fights, he tends to get finished. Like, he's been finished a decent amount in his career. And against Oleksiejczuk, who is good against strikers, like you said, he's got a lot of submission losses. That's kind of his downfall when the fight gets to the ground against guys like Caio Borralho. If it stays on the feet, his boxing is really, really good. And that left hand is something special. He puts a lot of guys down with it, and he makes all of his shots count, especially if he gets guys up against the fence and just kind of unloads those combinations where he's ripping the body and coming upstairs with it. He looks really good. He has good pressure and volume, which I like against Chikadze too, because if Chikadze's not at space with you, landing those big, shots one at a time, Michael's gonna win moments and win minutes in this fight, and mix that with the body work and Chikadze's notoriously kind of slows down as fights goes on. I think that favors Oleksiejczuk here. I like him for the pick. I think he has a chance to get the KO here, and if he doesn't, I think he runs away with it after the first half of the fight. But you put these two guys together. Both guys are, really good when they're the ones being the aggressors. Both guys are powerful. I'm going to be interested to see what the under is. If they set the line at 2.5 for some reason, I think you got to hammer the under because I think we're going to see a finish by KO. And I do like Michal Oleksiejczuk in this fight. It's going to be my pick as well.
Yeah, I like Michal coming into this one too. Chidi, being the older fighter, came into the UFC off the Contender Series, but he was like 32 or 33 years of age at the time, and he's obviously the brother of Anthony Njokuani, who used to be in the UFC.
Hmm.
He had the experience in Bellator, and it was kind of like I don't want to say like a last minute like jump into the UFC, but like it was obviously his last chance to get into the UFC, and he won, and then come into the UFC back to back first round finishes. Has that crazy fight with Gregory Rodriguez, and then the loss to Duraev. I mean, the hype was built up for that Gregory Rodriguez fight, and nearly finished Gregory Rodriguez, and then after that, it's kind of like just died down as far as the hype for Chini Njokuani. Michal, he's always going to be consistent with that big left hand. That's what he's going to be searching for. I mean, he spent some time up at 205. Obviously, he's definitely a 185, or I like him a lot better at 185. The fight against Bahalio, I think very highly of Bahalio, so I'm going to give him a pass there for sure. But I mean, the wins before that, like Cody Brundage doesn't age the best,
Hmm.
Sam Alvey doesn't age the best, and then a loss to Dustin Jacoby, who, I mean, Chidi could fight very similar to a guy like Dustin Jacoby, to be like, just be long, stay at your range, stay out of the way of that left hand, and you could probably win a decision because you're the longer guy that, has good kickboxing as well. But I don't know if Chidi's really going to fight that way. He's kind of been a early finisher guy as well. So I'm going to go with Michal for the pick. But it should be a fun fight. I'm really looking forward to see how this one plays out. Welterweight bout here. Song Kenan coming in at plus 235 against Rolando Bedoya, who sits at minus 295, over under 1.5 rounds, minus 200 for the over, plus 165 for the under. We're looking at here for Song Kenan, 2-3 in his last 5, 4-1 in his last 5 for Rolando Bedoya. 26 years of age for him, 33 for Song Kenan. Bedoya came into the UFC against Chaos Williams, and a lot of people thought he won that fight. He was a big underdog in that one. It was a split decision. I was puckering my cheeks with a Chaos Williams ticket. And I mean, everyone, if you watch film on before that, everyone could see that there's like holes in his striking where he gets hit, but he got hit by Chaos Williams a number of times, and it didn't really phase him. So like you're like, this guy's tough. This guy's really tough. He's getting hit by Chaos Williams, and he's not phased at all. I mean, a younger guy from Peru. Those guys from Peru just seem to be indestructible. So the kid's tough. He's got some good skills. Coming in here against Song Kenan, who is the only man to drop Ian Gary. So there's that. I mean, he had a pretty decent first round against Ian Gary and then gets finished. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's tough to really get behind Song Kenan in this spot because Bedoya looked really good against Chaos Williams. He's younger. He's probably a little more of a shiny new toy. But Song Kenan had a decent performance against Ian Gary before getting finished. I mean, he had a long laugh before that. UFC career hasn't looked good. He's a sizable underdog here, fighting in his part of the world. Do you think he could pull off an upset?
I think he could. I don't necessarily see it happening here based off what we saw at Bedoya in his UFC debut, but there's a couple of factors. Like, first, you look at Kenan Song's record, and the guy has a lot more experience than Bedoya at this level. The guy has, I think, 19 professional wins, and 17 of them come by finish. So that's a high rate. And I think 8 of those are by submission, 9 of them are by knockout. So he's got a well-rounded game. He does have 4 knockout losses on his record, and Bedoya showed on the feet he's pretty slick with it. Like, he couldn't put Chaos Williams out, but at the same time, nobody in the UFC has. So, I mean, there's that. Chaos Williams, though, in that fight with Bedoya, a lot of people thought Chaos was going to walk through him, this UFC newcomer. But like you said, these dudes from Peru are kind of indestructible on the feet. It's hard to put them out. And I think Chaos, not necessarily gas trying, but it had to be defeating, hitting him with the kitchen sink in that fight and just not being able to do any damage whatsoever. And Bedoya kind of lifting his arms at him, basically saying, "Is that all you got?" Smiling at him during the fight, just having fun in there. So for me, for Bedoya, I think a lot of people were high on him after that fight. He hung with Chaos. A lot of people thought he won, but I mean, is Bedoya that good, or is Chaos Williams just like a tad overrated? I don't know. Is Chaos Williams just this guy that has power and he puts people out and that's how he wins the fights? Or, is he actually a really good fighter? So it's hard to get a read on Bedoya. Like, he looks really good on the feet. He's fun to watch. He made that a really fun fight and a close fight against Chaos. But I mean, Song Kenan is a decent fighter as well. He's got 3 losses in the UFC. It's Ian Gary, Max Griffin, and Alex Morono. I will say his wins in the UFC are against guys that a lot of people watching this probably are never heard of. So there's that like level of competition factor. But I think this could play out as a decently close fight. I don't think Bedoya is going to go out there and starch Kenan. I don't think Kenan is going to be necessarily the more slick striker. But if he gets it to the ground, maybe we'll see what Bedoya's got on the ground and if Kenan can find his 9th submission or not. For the pick, I'm going to go with Bedoya. I do think this thing probably plays out on the feet, and Bedoya is probably just going to point and box his way to a decision victory. I see that happening here, but I think this could be kind of a sleeper fight, though. If I'm being honest, I think this is going to be a lot better than people think.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one too because I mean, Bedoya training how to shoot the box. He's going to fight just wild. Like, he's going to push the pace on you and get in your face and make you fight him. Song Kenan, you touched on it. I mean, like, the wins. He doesn't have like really any good wins, but the guys that he's losing to, it's like respectable. Like Ian Gary, Max Griffin, Alex Morono. Even before he got to the UFC, Brad Riddell even fought Israel Adesanya back in 2015 and took a loss there. But the wins, nothing any really notable that you would really know. Rolando Bedoya, though, training how to shoot the box, like I said, he's probably just going to be more active. I mean, he's never been finished. Song Kenan, I don't think can keep up with the pace of Rolando Bedoya as far as the fight style goes. Kenan fights out of Team Alpha Males, another good camp. So a couple good camps for these guys. Bedoya, I do see on his Instagram, he's got the blonde hair. So that's always a good sign to get behind. I'm going to take him for the pick. So, yeah, I mean, I can't go against him here. I think he just out-volumes him, could finish him. Because Song Kenan's been knocked out a good amount of times as well. So I'll take him. Welterweight bout here, Yusaku Kinoshita coming in at -145 against Billy Goff, making his debut, sits at +115. Over under 2.5 rounds, +205 for the over, -245 for the under. Yusaku Kinoshita, 22 years of age, 25 years of age for Billy Goff. Kinoshita made his UFC debut back in February. And that was the reality check because we touched on, a fraud Japanese prospect earlier that could be in Rinya Nakamura. Kinoshita took his first loss in his debut. He looked pretty bad. I mean, he looked really good before that fight, and there was a lot to get behind. Very solid striking. Had a really nice knockout on the Contender Series. Then goes out there against Adam Fugit. Fugit is like not some world beater by any means, but he is a solid fighter. And I mean, he's going to be a tough test. He's like a gatekeeper to, like, if you can't beat Adam Fugit, you're probably not going to be anything crazy. But Kinoshita is young enough to where, he can bounce back from this. Billy Goff making his UFC debut here. Contender Series fight was absolutely bonkers. Like, he got head kicked like 20 seconds in, was on his butt, and had to battle back and got the finish in the first round. Like, after getting knocked down and nearly got put out, came back and got the first round finish. And that's kind of just how he fights. Like, he's just a dog. Like, he's going to go in there. He's going to take some punishment. He's going to end up on his back. He's going to end up maybe belly down, like you on his back, him belly down, but he'll battle through it and get a win. So if Kinoshita can't put him away early, it's probably going to turn into some kind of dogfight. You could honestly say the fight against Fugit was some type of dogfight, or at least he made it dirty enough and made Kinoshita in places that he didn't want to be, and he kind of crumbled. So Billy Goff can do that against Kinoshita. He's got a good chance, but he's going to have to survive the early crisp striking of Kinoshita. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, no, I feel the same exact way. And I think a few things jump off the page to me. And one is that in Kinoshita's last fight, I think he showed that he's just a pure striker, and that's about it right now in his game. He doesn't really have that ground game or defense, because I don't know if it was exactly that Fugit was super, great on the ground. I just think that Kinoshita was that lost and was that bad, if I'm being honest. And for Billy Goff, obviously he's tougher than nails. If you watch that Contender Series fight, the kick he caught was just, flush, had him hurt in all kinds of trouble. But he hung in there. He got some takedowns. He got a knockdown of his own, and he put it on him to get the first round finish right after being dropped. It's not like there was a break in between rounds and he got to recover. Like, this dude fought through adversity and went out and got the win still. And I feel like that's exactly who you're looking to put money on, is a dog, because he fights like a dog. He was a decent sized favorite on the Contender Series when he did get dropped and then the win. But I do like his cardio. I think he's a dude that no matter how tired he gets, he's going to keep fighting no matter what. He comes forward no matter what, and he can also grapple, as he showed in that win on DWCS. And that's going to be the big advantage here. Like, if he can survive the storm of Kinoshita earlier and just get this fight to the ground, he's good and he's strong on top. And I think there's going to be, you're going to see levels between the grappling here and this one. But at the end of the day, Kinoshita, regardless of what his grappling looks like or has looked like in the last fight, the guy is dangerous on the feet. And Billy Goff did show that he does get hit. So we'll see if Billy Goff's game translate to this level, because you can kind of get away with that on the regional scenes, just being tough, and fighting through adversity. But, at some point you hit that level where when guys have you hurt, they know how to put you out and they know how to put you away. And I don't know if Kinoshita's there yet at that level, but for the money, I not for the money on this line, but for my money, I like a dog like Billy Goff, and I like that fighting style. So I'm going to pick him for the pick here, but betting wise, it's a little dicey with that power at Kinoshita.
Yeah, the way Goff fights, it's going to be tough to bet him as like a favorite unless he's going up against some can.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, like, I don't want to see he's going up against cans. I mean, he's got a couple Bellator fights. And even the guys that he's fighting in like Cage Titans, they're not like great, but they're not like, 0-5 or 0, they're not complete cans. They're not anywhere to the UFC level, but they're not complete cans. And even in those fights, it's like he's having to battle through some adversity to like get the wins, but he still ends up getting the wins. So I mean, the what it comes down to is like Kinoshita is going to have the much better striking. Can he put him away early is the question to me. And betting wise, it's like you like a dog like Billy Goff, where you're getting plus money on him because he's going to be tough and he's going to be able to battle back. He's going to fight for your money. But is it enough at like plus 145 to like really go in on him? I think it was like plus 115 or something around there. But is it enough to play him as a dog? At this point, I would probably say no. I'm going to go with Yusaku Kinoshita for the pick. If the line keeps going that way, then Billy Goff gets more interesting for me. But yeah, for the pick, I'm going to go with Kinoshita. I just think he's the better mixed martial artist at this point. Billy Goff, just a tough guy for sure. Flyweight bout here. Liang coming in at plus 405 against JJ Aldrich, coming in at minus 580. The fight we all asked for. Over under 2.5 rounds, plus 120 for the over, minus 150 for the under. Liang coming in at 3-2 in her last 5. Same with JJ Aldrich. But a little bit different 3-2 for both of these chicks. 0-2 in the UFC for Liang. She got taken out by Ariana Carnilosi in her debut and then brutally knocked out last year against Silvana Gomez Juarez. JJ, that was in Singapore as well. So, this is going to be her first fight back since then in the same spot. JJ Aldrich, 3-2 in her last 5. Her last fight out was disappointing. She's on a 2-fight losing streak. Disappointing fight for her. It was a loss to Ariane Lipski. She came in as a big favorite, minus 360. Clearly lost the decision. Before that was a loss to Erin Blanchfield. She's sitting at pretty heavy chalk here. So, a bold play, would you say, to take JJ Aldrich at that chalk? Or are you confident in her?
Yeah, no, I don't think you could lay that chalk at all, because In her last fight, she lost a huge upset. I mean, she was a big favorite in there, parlay buster to no end, and just showed no urgency at all. I mean, it's almost like she was timid and didn't, want to engage in any situations. But I mean, you strip that last fight away and her loss before that. I mean, she can wrestle. She's a decent striker that's getting better. I mean, it's not great, but it's not as bad as it was when she first got started. And she needs a bounce back here really bad. So she's got to have in her head that she has to be aggressive here and has to be the aggressor in a different game plan than we've seen lately, because it's just not going to get it done against anybody fighting like the way she did in her last one. She is a decision machine. She is JJ. Remember the decision, Aldrich, of the women's division. I mean, she does not finish girls. I mean, she'll wrestle them. She'll get some control. She'll land some ground and pound, but does not finish girls. If you watch Jan, she comes forward and is super aggressive in some fights. She burns hot right from the beginning. She'll almost try to like overwhelm and overpower girls. She'll get some takedowns, but it's not like you can tell she doesn't have like that pure wrestling background. She's more like dragging girls down. And a lot of her wins do come by submission when she gets the fight there, which against JJ Aldrich, who is a decent wrestler, I think it's going to be tougher for her to do here. And if it stays on the feet, JJ's no, boxing superstar by any means, but Jan's striking is not high level at all. So I think JJ Aldrich, probably cruises to another decision if she keeps it on the feet here. The only danger that JJ could put herself in is being under Jan, because, I mean, like I said, regardless of who, or Nas, I don't know why I keeps calling her Jan. But regardless of who Nas fought before the UFC, like, she does get a lot of finishes. And I do like that aspect of her game. I just don't know if she does it at this level, because she's lost brutally in her first two in the UFC. I do think JJ wins, not touching this fight whatsoever. This is the definition of greasy women's MMA fight. So I'll be staying away. But JJ Aldrich, I'll take for the pick.
Yeah, it's pretty wild because JJ Aldrich is the big favorite. Like you said, gets most of her wins by decision. She's only got 2 wins by finish.
Yep.
And if you look at Liang Na, she's only been to 1 decision her entire career. So something like clash of style. So I don't know, maybe Liang Na is going to come out here and make JJ Aldrich uncomfortable. Probably what she'll look to do. That's based off of what she has done. Just go out there and run at you and look for some takedowns or something. But anytime she's got up against UFC caliber opponent, she's got absolutely smoked. So like, her wins on the regional scene are like complete cans. I mean, the losses on the regional scene are like to Jan Quihi Yan, who was on the Contender Series. Maria Agapova was in the UFC. Juliana Vasquez in Bellator. Like, anytime she's fought somebody that's actually decent, she's lost for most of her career. Honestly, I wouldn't hate like a play on her just as this dog, because JJ Aldrich, like, she can't really put you out.
Right,
So,
exactly. That's the thing.
The longer she's in there, the more likely she is to possibly find a finish. But either way, it's a women's MMA. I would not touch JJ Aldrich at this. But I don't know, maybe play the under, because Liang Na is like literally kill or be killed type fighter. It's crazy to see the under 2.5 at chalk in a JJ Aldrich fight, but that's just how Liang Na fights. So I'd look at that maybe. For the pick, I gotta go JJ, but like I said, I wouldn't mind a play on Liang Na in this spot.
Yeah, now that you say it too, like, you look at JJ, you look at Na just getting starched by these higher level girls, but JJ does not have like that ability, or hasn't showed that ability. And like I said, the urgency isn't really there for JJ. But the thing that just shocks you when you look at Na's record is she has 18 first round finishes, I believe, or at least fights that have finished in the first round. She's been to a couple second rounds. And then outside of that, I think she's been to 1 decision in her whole entire career that she lost. And you look at her record, she does have a lot of fights. And to go out there and not really get past the second round, win or lose, and damn near every single one of them, like, you can tell she's at least got some aggressiveness or some power in the submission games there. So it does make you think, like, if she comes out there and just puts it on JJ and just shocks everybody and gets a quick finish, like, it wouldn't be out of this world.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on that, because if you like JJ, you might want to just take her after the first round. You might get a better price on her, because Liang Na comes out so hot. Featherweight bout here. Songwoo Choi coming in at -170 against Jarno Errens, who sits at +140. Over under 2.5 rounds, -110. The under sit at -120. Songwoo Choi. It's been a rough patch for him. I mean, you see the frame. The guy's got a great frame for featherweight, 6 foot, 74.5-inch reach. Jarno Errens, 5'11", 73-inch reach. So another decent sized frame for him. 30 years of age for Songwoo Choi. 2-3 in his last 5, though. Hasn't been good. I mean, hasn't been a good stretch for him. He's been knocked down 4 times, I believe, in his last 2 fights. And, I mean, the wins are against Julian Erosa, Yusuf Zalal, and Suman Mokhtarian. The losses aren't that bad, though. I mean, he comes into the UFC, loses to Movsar Evloev, loses to Gavin Tucker, goes on a 3-fight win streak, loses to Caceres, loses to Kulabau, and then the last time out was probably the worst loss of his UFC career against Mike Trezano, who I believe got cut after that as well. So, I mean, he stayed in the UFC, but the guy he lost to got cut, which is pretty wild. He got knocked down twice in that one. That was that like double knockout,
right off the bat,
craziness type fight. That was back at the UFC 281 card, I believe, in MSG. A wild fight, but he nonetheless gets knocked out. It just seems like he can't take a punch that well. I mean, Jarno Errens, in his debut, he's only had 1 UFC fight. That was at UFC Paris last year against William Gomi. He didn't look great, but I did watch that fight back today, and I saw him catch Gomi a couple times. I'm like, if he catches Songwoo Choi with those shots, I don't have confidence that he's going to be able to eat him like that. So it makes me hesitant to take Songwoo Choi in this spot at chalk. I do think he's probably the better mixed martial artist. And he's kind of been that guy. It's like he's got a lot of potential. He's trained at Kill Cliff FC. Looks like, based on his Instagram, he's been training with Korean Zombie in the lead up to this fight. So there's that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, I think if Sungwoo Choi is smart, I want to say he's got to try to wrestle here a little bit, especially based off Jarno Errens' first fight against William Gomi. Like, Gomi's not necessarily like a big wrestler or grappler. Like, he wins the majority of his fights by knockout, and he has 1 submission and a submission loss. He took him down 3 times, and he took him down with ease, it seemed like. And then I go back and I'm like, well, where did Jarno Errens even come from? And you look at his last fight before Gomi, he gets a decision win against a guy who's 7-2. Before that, he loses. Before that, he wins. And then everybody else is like 0-0, 2-5, 3-0, 16-24. Like, the guy is not really fighting high level of competition before the UFC. And I mean, you watch his game. He is a good kickboxer. He does have decent power. He will throw a lot of kicks. And like you said, I mean, if Choi gets clipped, like, he hasn't shown the best chin, but the takedown defense isn't really there for Jarno. And if Choi can just he's a big, strong guy. So if he can get in and get some takedowns, I think he'll have some success. Just another one of those greasy fights that you just don't know what to expect, because Choi obviously has a path to victory, but he also gets caught getting into these brawls, and he's so hittable when he is in those brawls. Like, he's got a great left hand. He is powerful, but he just gets clipped a lot, especially when he's swinging wild. And Jarno is a decent, boxer and kickboxer, so he could catch him. Like I said, Choi's got to go for the grappling. I'm not real high on Jarno. I don't think he's the best fighter in the world, but it's so impossible to be confident in Choi at this point, too, after what we've seen in the last few fights. So for the pick, I am going to take Sungwoo Choi. I do think he gets it done, but definitely greasy and definitely not confident, and probably won't be betting on a money line here.
Yeah, I don't think I could take him at chalk unless I find something to get more confident throughout the week. I will take him for the pick, but like you said, greasy fight. I don't think either of these guys has like some crazy future with the UFC. Songwoo Choi, I mean, I don't want to say there's like a lot of hype around him, but there was like some promise for him when he came into the UFC. This is going to be his 9th UFC fight. He's 3-5 in the UFC at this point. So, I mean, if he doesn't turn it around here, like, he's probably going to be out the door. Yeah. So it's kind of a do or die for him. And they're giving him Jarno Errens, which kind of makes me think like the loser gets cut in this spot. Like, Jarno Errens came in on short notice, I believe, to fight William Gomi, and lost. And like you said, Gomi's more of a kickboxer. He got taken down and controlled on the ground. Probably the path of least resistance for Song Woo Choi is to use that ground game. I would expect him to at least mix it in here. Because even if, look at fights that he had recently, like against Josh Kulabau, he got clipped a couple of times. He went to the ground game there to at least make it close, still ended up losing. But you get knocked down 4 times in 2 fights, you're probably not going to be that confident to go in there and start exchanging a lot. So look for him to take him to the ground. I hope he does, because I don't want to see him get clipped again.
Yeah.
For the pick, I'm going to take him, though. And those are the picks for UFC Singapore this Saturday. And if you stay till the end of this video, this is the announcement. You got to make sure to tune in early because it's starting at 5 a.m. Eastern. It's in Singapore, and they're going to be starting at, normal time, their time. So our time is going to be, the prelims start at 5 a.m. Eastern, which would be 4 a.m. Central Time and 2 a.m. Pacific Time. So if you're in the UFC, or if you're in the USA, you're going to be waking up early to watch some UFC, which is interesting. We'll get the old European treatment, I guess, because that's usually the time that they kind of have to wake up. But yeah, those are the picks. If you want to get on the bets, link will be in the description to join the Double Leg Premium, or you can wait till Friday to get the instant download for just this week. You can stay up to date with everything at the Double Leg. On Instagram, you can follow me on the socials at HeyJaiPicks. Where can they find you?
On all social medias at the Parlay MMA.
All right. Any last messages going in to the card this weekend?
Gotta wait. Set those alarms. You're gonna miss it. If not, you might catch the main card if you're an early riser. But other than that, man, you gotta set your alarms. I see some violence on this card, though. I think you're gonna be in for a treat. Some good matchups, some good strikers on this card as well, and some good prospects. So we'll see what happens.
Looking forward to it. Like always, should be another great weekend in the UFC. The Double Leg here, signing out.